16 people have been executed in Delaware. This is part 4 of the series. David Dawson, April 26, 2001. David Dawson and 3 other prisoners broke out of the Delaware Correctional Center at Smyrna early on the morning of December 1, 1986. The other escapees stole another car and went north, while Dawson stole a car and went south. Dawson broke into Richard and Madeline Kistner's house after breaking into another one in Kenton. Before stealing her car and some cash, Dawson stabbed Mrs. Kistner 12 times and tied her up when she was alone at home getting ready for work. The following day, he was discovered dozing off in another stolen vehicle in Milford. On June 24, 1988, the Delaware Superior Court convicted Dawson of first-degree murder and a number of additional offenses. In order to demonstrate that Dawson's membership in the prison's Aryan Brotherhood chapter was pertinent to his offenses, the prosecution intended to provide evidence during the sentence phase, including expert testimony concerning the organization. In exchange for the exclusion of expert testimony regarding the Aryan Brotherhood, Dawson eventually consented to a condition that the organization was a white racial organization with origins in a prison gang of the same name in California. Dawson was given the death penalty when the jury determined that the aggravating circumstances, such as his prior criminal history, his escape from prison, the fact that he committed murder in addition to a second offense, and his affiliation with the Aryan Brotherhood, outweighed the mitigating circumstances. The death penalty was maintained by the Delaware Supreme Court. Dawson had 14 prior felony convictions, 3 escapes from maximum security prisons, and had been almost continuously behind bars since age 13. In 1988, his death sentence was reversed, but he was retried and again sentenced to death in 1993. He was executed by lethal injection on April 26, 2001. At Delaware Correctional Center, Dawson, 46 years old, was declared dead by lethal injection at 12:05 a.m. Sleeping, eating, reading, writing letters, speaking with Department of Correction employees, and spending time with his loved ones, friends, spiritual advisor, and lawyer were all part of his final hours. Abdullah Tanzil Hameen, May 25, 2001. Born Cornelius Ferguson, Abdullah Hameen was convicted in 1992 of killing Troy Hodges on August 5, 1991, as he was engaged in a substances deal outside the Claymont Shopping Center. Troy had a contact gunshot to the back. When Troy was murdered, Hameen was on parole for killing a bar patron in 1980 when he was just 17 years old. Additionally, he was convicted of severe assault in 1985 and 1991, both of which resulted in the serious injuries of 2 people. Hodges, a Wilmington resident who was reportedly a drug dealer, had agreed to pay $10,000 for a half kilogram of cocaine, either directly from Highland or through a middleman. Hodges made plans to meet Highland at the shopping center. Hodges went to the mall with a friend, Alvin Wiggins. Wiggins was 17 years old when these incidents occurred. Apparently, Wiggins was a narcotics dealer as well. During Ferguson's trial, he provided testimony also. Wiggins claims that Hodges gave him a plastic bag containing 2 smaller items, each having $5,000 in cash, before they took a car to the mall. After that, they parked in the bottom lot of the mall. According to Wiggins's testimony, Hodges removed one of the 2 money bundles they had when they got to the mall and told him to wait in his car until he gave him a sign or comes back. After that, Hodges turned left and went through a corridor that led to the mall's upper parking lot. Wiggins spent 90 minutes waiting for Hodges. He made an unsuccessful attempt to reach Hodges using his beeper during that period. Wiggins drove off after finding out that someone had been shot at the mall. On September 26, 1991, Ferguson provided the Delaware State Police with a taped statement. He acknowledged in his statement that he was a passenger in a car that Highland had driven to the mall that evening. Ferguson claims that Highland parked the car when they got to the mall. Hodges climbed into the car's front passenger seat, and after that, Hodges and Highland quarreled over drugs and money. Ferguson claims that Highland then secretly handed him a gun. He also claimed that when he got the gun, it was already loaded. Hodges was the target of Ferguson's gunpoint. Hodges and Highland were still fighting. Ferguson claimed that Hodges opened the car door and attempted to exit the vehicle, even though it was traveling slowly in the direction of the mall. According to Ferguson, Hodges then slapped at the gun, causing it to accidentally fire a single shot. Ferguson claimed that he did not know Hodges had been wounded and died until days later. According to Stuart Cohen's testimony, he was in the Tri-State Mall's Kmart parking lot on the evening of August 5, 1991. Cohen reported hearing a popping sound. In the parking lot, he noticed a blue Chevrolet Cavalier driving slowly. He witnessed someone leaping from the vehicle. After running in his direction, this individual fell on the sidewalk. Hodges died after severe bleeding from a single gunshot wound, according to an autopsy. The bullet pierced his left side and proceeded upward through his torso, according to the report, after being fired from behind. At the time of his execution, Warden Robert Snyder, he asked Hameen if he had any final words. He said, "Tara, I hope this brings you comfort and eases your pain some. Mom and Shakira, I love you. I'll see you on the other side. That's all." As the deadly poisons began to circulate inside Hameen, his mother and his wife, Shakira Hameen, seemed to be praying in silence. After 3 intense breaths, he fell silent. Tara Hodges was the victim's sister. For his last meal, he ordered lobster, crab legs, baked potato with sour cream, a mango, and ice water. Brian David Steckel, November 4, 2005. Steckel was a convicted killer in the 1994 essay and murder of 29-year-old Sandra Lee Long. When Steckel knocked on Long's door on September 2, 1994, he asked to use her phone. After entering, he hung up the phone and demanded to have relations. He threw her onto a couch and tried to strangle her with some pantyhose after she refused. He used a sock to continue his assault after the pantyhose broke. He essayed her after she had lost consciousness. After dragging Long to a bedroom, he burned the curtains and Long. Long passed away from smoke inhalation and 60% body burns. After that, Steckel visited a former co-worker's house and had a few beers. Steckel requested the co-worker's wife to take him to a liquor store after the co-worker had left. They passed Long's now burning residence as a result. Steckel reportedly became upset and furious when the co-worker's wife joked, "You look like you killed someone." A man specified the name of his next victim and claimed to be the Driftwood killer over the phone to the News Journal within hours of the fire. When the police placed this woman in protective custody, she informed them that she had been getting very lurid phone calls, extremely sexual. Steckel was arrested on an outstanding harassment warrant after it was determined that he was responsible for the calls to the woman and the newspaper. Steckel was permitted to sleep the night because he was intoxicated at the time of the arrest. He waived his Miranda rights and admitted to attacking Long the following morning. A forensic dentist concluded that Long was responsible for the bite wound on Steckel's finger. In the Newcastle County, he was found guilty on 3 first-degree murder charges. By a vote of 11-1 on January 8, 1997, following the separate penalty phase, he was given the death penalty. Steckel showed no remorse for his actions. He sent Long's mother a copy of the autopsy report along with the words, "Read it and weep. She is permanently gone. Don't cry over burnt flesh." At his execution, his last words were, "I want to say I'm sorry for the cruel things I did. I'm not the same man I was when I came to jail. I changed. I'm a better man. I walked in here without a fight, and I accept my punishment. It is time to go. I love you people. I'm at peace." According to accounts of the execution, there appeared to be multiple drug injection errors. In the 12 minutes following Steckel's final remark, witnesses claimed to have heard multiple clicks from the lethal injection machine, which prompted them to dispose of the computer. Steckel remained lucid throughout this period and continued to speak to his friends and family who had been present at the execution. Since Steckel was observed convulsing, it seems that the sedative and paralytic medications were ineffective. His last meal consisted of cheesesteak, coleslaw, and Pepsi. Robert Jackson III, July 29, 2011. Jackson made the decision to break into a home with his accomplice, Anthony Lachette, in order to steal money for Mary Jane purchases. Lachette, who knew one of Elizabeth Girardi's children, proposed that they break into her house. The two entered the residence through the rear door while no one was there. Once inside, the two collected items such as a camera, rare coins, jewelry, compact discs, and firecrackers. Jackson and Lachette packed the stolen goods into paper bags and walked out the door the same way they came in. Mrs. Girardi had come home and was making her way to Jackson's car as they were making their way to the driveway where Jackson had parked the vehicle. Jackson tried to convince Lachette to stay, but he chose to leave. Then Lachette left Jackson behind, dropped his luggage, and fled. Jackson took an axe from a shed and confronted Mrs. Girardi in the driveway, repeatedly hitting her in the face. Lachette was freed from jail in 1996 after entering a guilty plea to burglary and conspiracy and testifying against Jackson during the trial. After less than 2 hours of deliberation, the first of two juries recommended that Jackson be executed. In 1995, even though Jackson apologized to Girardi's family, a second jury he had faced decided 11-1 to execute him. His last words were, "Are the Girardis in there? Christopher and Claudia, if you are in there, I've never faulted you for your anger. I would have been mad myself, but I didn't take your mother from you." He then suggested that his co-defendant, Tony Lachette, was in fact the killer. "Tony is laughing his ass off right now because you're about to watch an innocent man die. This isn't justice." For his last meal, he chose steak, a baked potato skins, corn, and a soda. Shannon Johnson, April 20, 2012. He was executed for the 2006 murder of 25-year-old Cameron Hamlin. Since 2001, Johnson's criminal history included 33 felony offenses, 145 minor charges, and 57 arrests. Johnson essayed a pregnant lady on December 19, 2002. For the offense, he entered a guilty plea to fourth-degree essay. Because of this previous violent criminal conviction, Hamlin's murder was punishable by death. Johnson was also thought to have been involved in his stepfather's shooting. Johnson visited his ex-girlfriend Lakeisha Truitt's house in Wilmington, Delaware, on September 24, 2006. Truitt and Johnson had a son together, but their relationship had terminated because of Johnson's abuse of Truitt. Johnson had visited Truitt in the hopes of making amends, but instead he saw Truitt and Cameron Hamlin, a 25-year-old man who had been staying at Truitt's house, as her new boyfriend. He saw Truitt and Hamlin seated in a car in front of her house. Johnson took his gun and started shooting into the car, wounding Hamlin to death. Then he ran away. After escaping the gunshot unscathed, Truitt hurried to her grandmother's house and dialed 911. She was told not to go home until Johnson was apprehended out of fear for her safety. But on November 10, 2006, she made the decision to go back home and get her kid some clothes. Johnson had been pursuing Truitt while avoiding notice. He ran to her and shot her with a gun while Truitt was sitting in her car. He hit Truitt, but when his gun jammed, he stopped and ran away. Despite being hurt in the incident, Truitt lived. On November 15, 2006, Wilmington police apprehended and detained Johnson. On March 27, 2008, he was found guilty of first-degree murder in Newcastle County Superior Court and given the death penalty. Johnson was also charged by the prosecution with attempting to hire a released prisoner to murder Truitt and obstruct her testimony. Johnson stated that he had no intention of appealing his death sentence when it was upheld by the Delaware Supreme Court in 2009. He expedited his own execution by waiving his appeals. On 2 occasions, federal public defenders attempted to get involved in the case without Johnson's permission. A state judge found that Johnson was not mentally incompetent despite their claims to the contrary. At 28 years old, Johnson was executed by lethal injection on April 20, 2012 at the James T. Vaughn Correctional Center. His last meal was chicken lo mein, carrots, cake, wheat bread, and margarine and iced tea. Delaware had no way to execute death row convicts after his execution because their supply of lethal injection chemicals ran out. The Delaware Supreme Court declared the state's death penalty unconstitutional on August 2, 2016. Johnson is now formally the final individual to be executed by the state of Delaware as a result of the decision. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.